With that, we are going to ask the University of, no, let's see, yeah, University of Florida. It's up next, right? So, as these leave, let others come. Yeah, the way it works. I know. I use it. Oh, I'm more broken. Actually, can you give me a second? Yeah. How do you take? Just bring me the blue packet. Bring the blue packet. Yeah. Thank you. Yeah, he's pissed off. Yeah. Tweak. No, he's not. Are you ready? And folks sitting down, is everybody kind of back in place before we get started? Just give us about 30 more seconds to refill our glasses. And thank you, Color Beard. Guys, are most folks back in their seats yet? I think so. Dr. Machen, thank you so much for being here with us. Dr. Glover, thank you so much. And with that, hey, Carlos, thank you so much, Mr. Chairman. So thank you so much for being here.
Thank you, Chairman Parker. I'd like to introduce the people with me at the head table, please.
Yeah.
Professor Scott Nygren, our faculty trustee. Carlos Alfonso, the new chair of the Board of Trustees. Joe Glover, provost, and Mr. Michael Heekin, our new trustee as well. I would note that we're anxiously awaiting hopeful announcements tomorrow about another 2 new additions to our trustee cohort. That will make 7 new trustees in 1 year's time. So we're going through a rather significant metamorphosis of our trustees as we enter this year. So I'm looking forward to tomorrow's announcement. Today, I will give you an overview of the current strengths and areas of promise that we have at the university, an update on our major goals for 2011-2012 and for ensuing years. We'll talk about resources, financial aid, our proposed use of the 15% tuition hike, specifically the differential component of that, and our most important legislative budget requests that are moving forward in our system. Okay. Can you also, is it working on your screens as well? Let me start by presenting a selection of performance highlights in the areas that speak directly to Board of Governors' system-wide goals. As you know, boosting 4-year graduation rates is one such goal. It's an important area for a number of reasons, including increasing access, as well as an indication of institutional efficiency. Our 4-year graduation rate has jumped significantly from 58 to 64% for our fall 2006 cohort, which are the graduates for the spring of 2010. Graduation rates have been trending up since 1996, when the rate was about 50%. So in that, a little over a decade, we have increased 14% our 4-year graduation rate. We've looked carefully at this jump, recent jump, and we think it's because of a combination of things, including the improved administration of our universal tracking system, which has been in place now for a number of years. Our advisors are paying more attention to students who had completed their programs and actually nudging them out the door. We had a significant number of students who were completed but not gone. And we also think the downturn in the economy has had an effect on this, as students are taking a little bit more focused look at their education. As we look to the cohort that will come in next year, we believe that these numbers are real, it's not a fluke, and the 64% four-year graduation rate appears to be stable. Our six-year rate is holding steady at 83%, which is the same as the previous year, and again, that's up from 77% of about a little over a decade ago. So we are making progress in this area. Another important goal for the system is the research operations, and we have good news there as well. The faculty and staff received $678 million in research funding in fiscal year 2010, an 18% increase over 2009. That total included $77 million of stimulus dollars and also an additional $74 million in non-stimulus federal funding. It also included the largest single grant ever awarded to the University of Florida, that being a $64 million grant to our Institute on Aging. We are looking hard to see if that number will be stabilized this year. We think it's likely to dip a little because of the loss of stimulus dollars and other factors. Nevertheless, we're very confident that our numbers are continuing to trend up overall. And one of the important results of research funding is the economic development that ensues through job creation. And our university has an aggressive technology commercialization operation, and we matched the gains in research with gains in tech transfer this past year. We had nearly $54 million in licensing revenue in 2009, which is up from $40 million in 2005. We licensed or executed options on 115 University of Florida technologies in 2009, which is up from 66 just 4 years ago in 2005. We had 73 patents issued in 2008-09, which is up from 54 in a comparable period 4 years earlier. Other highlights worthy of note include the fact that we graduated our first class of Florida Opportunity Scholars. These are the first in college students that are funded through grants from the state as well as from the university. We found that their graduation rate equals and in some cases exceeds the graduation rate of the normal student body. Their GPA is equal to that of the normal student body as well. So it proves to be a fully integrated, highly successful program. The big challenge we face is the increasing cost of attendance and being able to sustain 400 new enrollees every year. Our capital campaign, called Florida Tomorrow, we're finishing the 6th year of a 7-year campaign, and we are about $1.37 billion in. We will not have the end of the year till the end of this month, and we, by the way, are seeing a significant influx of dollars from donors who have made pledges and are wanting to get their gift included under the cap that will be in. So it's proving to be an unusual incentive, so we may do well. But we expect to exceed $1.5 billion, which is the goal by this time next year, and all systems are go on that campaign. We had 29,269 applications for the fall entering freshman class. And our entering students have a 4.3 GPA and a SAT score combined of 1,963. For the coming academic year, we plan to focus on strengthening the university's doctoral programs and research with an eye toward increasing our national impact in graduate education. For the first time in over a decade, maybe 2 decades, the National Research Council has published data on graduate programs nationally, and we have been collecting data through our graduate school for about 5 years as well. This is a unique data set that is allowing us to take a hard look at our graduate programs, including things as student completion, placement, follow-up, etc. And so we think that next year will be a significant opportunity for us to emphasize looking hard at our graduate programs. We will also continue our evaluation of the concept of a self-insurance health program for our employees. We believe that if we were allowed to take our employees into a self-insurance program, we could cut costs and increase health coverage for all of our employees. We have been given encouragement by the governor and the leadership of the House and Senate to go ahead and do that, and we're hopeful to bring that forward for approval in the next year. We're also hoping next year to expand distance learning with the help of Imbanet Compass Knowledge Group, who is our commercial provider of choice that is our partner in developing these programs. Distance learning is important to us because it represents a key source of new revenue for the university while also increasing access to a University of Florida education. There are a number of noteworthy facts related to distance education at the university. We have this year over 4,500 students enrolled in 42 distance learning programs, and we anticipate that we will earn over $60 million in distance learning revenues this year. That's an increase of 5% over last year. Just over 2,500 of our distance learning students are Florida residents. About 1,800 reside elsewhere in the United States, and we have 175 international distance learning students from more than 30 countries. The most popular distance learning program among the international students is our Public Health Care Certificate Program. New programs completed during this last year and begun this last year are 2 new bachelor's degree programs. It's a degree completion program requiring an associate's degree to enroll, 4 master's degree programs, 6 master's certificate programs, and 42 individual courses developed by our faculty. So obviously this is a growth area for the University of Florida. I keep forgetting the slides, excuse me. Our first institutional goal here flows from the items that I have just been discussing. We wish to continue our 4-year graduation rate through effective advising and improved universal tracking. We wish to continue to expand distance learning, turning to self-funded undergraduate programs to provide more access to the University of Florida for qualified students who are turned down for the residential programs that we have today. We want to build a catalog of general education courses available electronically for efficiency and student convenience statewide. And we're very excited about our next goal here, a unique spring-summer session that will also increase undergraduate access to the University of Florida. We plan to admit 500 to 800 students in February of 2012 for matriculation in January of 2013. We wish to shape the curriculum around innovation, dovetailing with our technology commercialization initiatives, and we anticipate we will eventually admit and have enrolled 2,000 students in this Innovation Academy concept where students will be focusing on traditional degrees as well as entrepreneurship. The legislature has endorsed this program and indeed has authorized for this program only to have Bright Futures scholarship money available during the summers where these students will be on campus registered. Our third goal here is to complete the Florida Innovation Hub in Gainesville, pictured on the right of the screen, and also the UF Research and Academic Center in Lake Nona, Florida. As for the hub in Gainesville, we used an $8.2 million federal grant and $5 million of our own funds for the 45,000 square foot innovation hub, which will be completed and occupied this fall. We already have a contract with a private developer to build the next building adjacent to the hub. Located in walking distance to the campus, this building will serve as an incubator and catalyst for UF technology spinoffs. The hub will have space for 12 to 5 technology startups and is the first facility in an expansive 25-acre innovation square bridging downtown to the University of Florida campus. And with regard to the Research and Academic Center on Lake Nona, this center is intended to promote collaboration among University of Florida, University of Central Florida, and Sanford Burnham researchers. The goal is research in cancer and diabetes with a focus on bench-to-bedside therapies and medicines and the center will house a clinical research unit from the university's Institute on Aging. It will house an expanded pharmacy doctoral program in pharmacometrics and the Orlando campus of the College of Pharmacy's entry-level pharmacy degree program. As you know, Governor Scott vetoed $5 million that the legislature had authorized to complete this building, and we are hopeful in the coming session to go back and convince everyone that that needs to be done. As for our academic programs, we wish to maintain our undergraduate enrollment at approximately 32,000 residential students in our fall-spring traditional enrollment program. And as I mentioned earlier, we will add to that over the next several years 2,000 undergraduates via our spring-summer program. This is in the area of access to Florida residents primarily who wish to receive a degree from our institution. We have proposed new baccalaureate programs in international studies, biomedical engineering, African American studies. We propose new master's programs in sustainable development practice, biology, genetics counseling, and digital health. And we have proposed new research doctorate programs in family, youth, and community sciences and in biology. Student demands continue to evolve, and we must respond to these by offering new learning opportunities. As I will mention relative to tuition, we have used our budget resources to actually hire new faculty during this economic downturn. So we have added new faculty in a number of these areas in anticipation of being able to make this work. With regard to the tuition increase and how it will be spent, the undergraduate tuition increase will generate $15 million, $8 million from the state authorized increase and $7 million in differential. We will raise an additional $11 million from graduate and professional tuition increases throughout all of our academic programs. With regards to how we will spend this money, we received a $2 million cut in need-based financial aid from the state. We must replace that. And as many of you are aware, the change in Bright Futures, the 20% drop, increased the number of students who now qualify and must have need-based financial aid in order to be fully satisfied. So we have incurred a net increase in financial aid requirements of $9 million as our first priority, and we intend to fully fund that from the tuition increase. In addition, 2 years ago, we used stimulus money to hire 100 additional faculty, recognizing that at this point the stimulus money would be gone and we would roll them onto our regular budget. And that will cost this university an additional $8 million next year that we didn't have. But again, this is money that hires new faculty that teach and do research for our students. The remainder of the differential money has been distributed at the graduate and professional level by program. Some actually didn't add differential because of the market issues they faced in the national competition for students. Some did, and we allowed the grad professional program pretty much to keep those resources to increase the quality of their institution. You also are aware, of course, that we took a $26 million hit from the base budget on the base budget side from the state. So all told, our net need for additional revenue was over $50 million this year, and the tuition is certainly a nice addition to meeting that deficit. Our tuition next year will be $5,700, remaining an anticipated 25% below the national average of public universities. Before we go to our legislative agenda, I would state that the university is very proud and intends to continue our mission as a land-grant institution serving the state of Florida in unique ways. That mission is codified in state and federal law and is dependent upon the continued receipt of state and federal funds in order to effect that charge. Next year is the 150th birthday of the land-grant university concept. The Morrill Act was established in 1862. And we're very proud of our role as a land grant and expect to continue serving in that capacity. Our legislative budget priorities, we already mentioned Lake Nona. We also propose a statewide personalized medicine program that will use breakthrough genetic information to improve patient care and outcomes, programs in computational biology, IFAS research and extension relative to workload costs, a virtual general education core for the state university and state college system, and a UF Health Sciences Simulation Center. We also intend to promote healthy, sustainable animal systems through research through IFAS, research computing resources for the University of Florida and the state of Florida. The Stan Mayfield Biorefinery is coming online up in Perry, and we need to get operational funds for that. And we are a national resource for digitizing the biological collections of various components of the university's resources. We would like to have a Master of Science in Patient Safety, a joint program between the university and Florida healthcare systems. We have had an Archer clinic that serves underrepresented populations west of Gainesville for a number of years. This was cut completely by the last legislative session. We're going to try again to get that refunded. There are public issues in education and agriculture and in natural resources which need funding. And VetMed is looking for emerging pathogens, world-class scholars to recruit. We also hope to expand our dental program and enhance the size and diversity of our dentist workforce. Today, I hope that we have made some points to you that we are seeing increases in our graduation rates and pioneering new approaches to education, such as the Spring Summer Innovation Academy. We expect to fully fund state losses in financial aid, and while we continue to seek new revenue sources such as distance learning, our budget cuts and our other needs require the 15% tuition hike in order to sustain our efforts. Our faculty members have many highly relevant, significant legislative budget requests that we would like to push forward. I will mention that many of these requests are still being discussed on campus, and hopefully by the fall we will have the list honed down and ready for further discussion. Thank you. I don't know if I have any time left, but we're available for questions.
Thank you, Dr. Matchin. Any questions by members of the board? Governor Hosseini.
Dr. Matchin, congratulations, I mean, raising $1.3 billion of 1.5, I mean, that's huge. I think our state is blessed by giving people in this state helping the universities. What is the total amount that the foundation has, your foundation has right now?
Is the question what's our endowment?
Yes.
I think it's approaching 1.3 billion.
1.3 billion, but you have raised 1.373 billion. What's the total amount?
That's a lot of the 1.3 billion is gifts and pledges.
A commitment, okay.
Yeah, we have 60% of that in cash. The other 40%, the way you count it, once you sign the letter saying you're going to make a gift to us, we count it, and then we bring it in. So over the next 3 to 4 years, it will come in. Now remember, a lot of that money doesn't go into endowment; it goes for actual expenditures that don't make it to the endowment. Okay.
My next question is that you're short $5 million in finishing up a building, and this is always have been an argument of mine. What do you do with that building when you don't have the money to finish it?
We shelled it. It's just one floor that we're shelling. We're going to finish the rest of the building, and we're going to move in. We've actually started hiring some people, and they are being housed in the Sanford Burnham Institute right now in anticipation of the building being done. So it's not going to lie empty. It's going to be occupied as finished. But we are short enough money to finish it off.
Okay, so you're not going to use your foundation money or endowment money to complete that building?
I think the state should fund that. That's an economic development project that was generated through our involvement with the state bringing Sanford Burnham here. We've been given tremendous support from the legislature. In fact, they authorized the $5 million. I actually think it was a misunderstanding that it got vetoed. It's an investment in economic development for the state of Florida.
So perhaps there should be more a kind of a communication with, maybe perhaps with the universities or the Board of Governors about what gets approved by the legislators and goes to the governor's office. And
If
there
you can
was so
solve
much
that
work.
problem, I would be happy to.
All right. But let me, the last question. So you get the students, either they come in from year one, or they're coming through the 2+2 program. When these two level of students come in, so they go in their third year, how do they perform?
We find that you're asking about a comparison between the 2+2 students and the freshmen, the
Yes.
FCICs. We find that both cohorts experience a semester of adjustment, but after the semester of adjustment, our transfer students perform as well as our freshman students. All of the deans and the department chairs tell me that they cannot detect significant differences between the transfer students and our native freshman students.
So then continue with the question. So are you better off? You get what, about 55,000 applications a year?
29,000.
29
Freshmen.
No.
Freshmen.
Well, how many applications do you get a year for people who want to come to University of Florida?
We get about 29,000 applications for the freshman class. Probably for transfers, we're getting more on the order of 5,000 to 7,000. We admit about 2,500 AA transfer students every year.
Okay. Are you not better off to get those students through transfer after 2 years, because you can get them graduated faster, you can put them to the workforce faster, and they can help the University of Florida faster?
I think that's a complex question that we could discuss, because there are also funding implications when you change the mix of students we're addressing. And basically what you're saying, suppose you cut out lower division students and you became an upper division university. That has fairly dramatic implications for how we use our funding and whether we could actually literally afford to do that, because upper division education can be quite expensive. That's where you get into the specialized laboratories, the smaller classes. So we would have to look at that proposal very carefully.
So what you're saying is that some of the lower division courses is less expensive and pays for some of the upper division. I'm just trying to get an understanding of
Yes,
that.
certainly with some of the lower division courses, you're able to address the educational needs in a more efficient and cost-effective manner than with some of the more specialized upper division courses.
How about the opportunity that it will give you to have more graduate students, which you can charge by far more? Has ever a study been done to see what the mix is and how the 2+2 program works, and that, University of Florida, you get so many applications, so many people want to come in, and let the market decide, and if the 2+2 program really works, that would free up for you to bring in so many more students and graduate them quicker.
I'd like to put this on paper, would show you. You're talking about first-time in college students, transfer undergraduate students, and then graduate students, and they're not interchangeable exactly. So there's an economic question. Look, I have a hard enough time getting them out of there after 4 years. If I told them they could only come for 2 years, no telling what would happen. No.
I'm going to say, I think Ann was next, and then we'll go to you, Norm. Go ahead, Ann.
Thank you.
I have a couple quick distance learning questions. Shocking, Joe, I know. One may be for our staff, but as I look at the numbers and the growth, and these are the ones that are in our report here are state-funded ones, and I think what I heard with the MNET and the other growth is significant growth in ones that are not state-funded. Is that not something, and again, I'm guessing you're not going to be the only one telling us you're doing stuff like that as we get through these programs. When we're looking at these in the total picture in our annual report, I guess I'm wondering if we should not be looking at what's the growth in those other students, because they're University of Florida students that are just being funded differently in a different profit center. And then also, you guys lead so much in tracking student success. I guess I just am curious, are there certain success measures we should be looking at differently with the distance learning students, and or how are we tracking those success, both the private funded ones and the state funded ones.
If it provides you with some reassurance, I think everyone nationally is asking the same question, and so SACS, the Southern Accreditation Society, has begun to ask universities the question, how do you know that the outcomes from your distance programs are equivalent to the outcomes from your on-campus programs? And so as we prepare for our next SACS accreditation process, we are explicitly addressing that. In addition, there are national standards that are being developed to measure the quality and the output of distance education programs. And in particular in one of our LBRs where we request funding to put 24 gen ed courses on a distance platform, we make the commitment that we will seek something called Quality Matters certification, which is a program that's been a national program developed by the University of Maryland to actually certify the quality and production of these distance ed programs. So I think that's a very valid question. We are looking at that both in response to your concerns, the BOG staff concerns, and in response to our national accreditation concerns.
Well, and I guess I would just suggest maybe we not all reinvent the wheel, doing that 10 times or so around here, and as we look at it, maybe the staff can kind of help us think about how to address that next year, so we're looking at the whole picture. Thank you.
Norm?
My question, Mr. President, is as you look out in the future, do you have any idea how much revenue and profit you can make on distance learning? If we take the handcuffs off and we let you be entrepreneurial, it seems to me that you've proven right now that there is a desire for a UF degree, not only statewide, but nationally, internationally. And where do you think you can go with that?
We don't know, Norm, to tell you the truth. There are some examples out there. Maryland and Michigan State are the two big, Penn State are the two big ones, and they have an international thrust to them. We decided we weren't qualified to take this on our own, and that's why we hired a partner who is a professional entity who is in charge of marketing and planning in this endeavor we're in. I mean, we're not going to lower the standards in order to increase the revenue. So that's one of the things we've ensured as we start up, that we can find equivalency across residential and distance learning programs. But provided there's no dilution of the regular program, we will be able to, because these programs are essentially self-funded, we will be able to add the resources we need so that we can keep going as we get out there. But as you know, 60 million is not chump change. That's a good start, and that's mainly from business.
I was looking at that when you were going through the numbers, and you were talking about 9 million, 8 million, and you had a $50 million setback. But then I was thinking, but you had a $60 million gain, and if you could increase that 2-3 times.
It's not a gain. It's only a 5%. Only 5% of that is a gain. Most of those revenues come from business and pharmacy, who have been in distance learning for over a decade, right? So it's not fair to say that that's the whole market, but I think it's fair to say every university in America thinks that's going to solve their financial woes. So there's going to be a train wreck out here somewhere as everybody tries to make all this work. I think in the end, though, the public's going to be the beneficiary, because it's going to increase the opportunities to get education in this format, and there will be an incredible menu of choices for people to choose from. So whether you live in Florida or West Virginia or Maryland, you can take an online course or program from the University of Florida. And then on the other hand, if you live in Palm Beach, you can take one from West Virginia or Maryland or Michigan as well.
Gus?
Yes. I would ask, hearing about the pledges that you have, and coming, of course, I'm going to repeat myself again, have your trustees at all the universities, the University of Florida, your Bull Gators, call the legislators. I know they have temporarily suspended matching funds, but we need funds now, and the matching fund program is critically important, and I would say we all have to work together to convince the legislature to have that program back in, because we need those funds, Mr. President.
Yeah.
What I would say in answer to that from a trustee's point of view is that in I was a founding trustee, and I don't think we ever had as much trustee involvement in the legislative process ever as we had this year. I know that I was there a lot, and so were the rest of us. And so I understand what you're saying. Sometimes it's just not there.
Just for what it's worth, Gus, it's my observation that they don't need convincing. They get it. And the moratorium that they're imposing this July 1 is really an attempt to save it, to allow us to take a breath and catch up on our commitments so that the program will remain credible.
Good.
So I'm not so sure this is an issue of the legislature not understanding the value of that program. It's the funding. It's simply the funding.
Okay, thank you.
Dean?
Mr. President, when I look at some of the metrics, it seems to me that the universities, the public universities that are ranked ahead of you on average are paying their faculty more, they have a better student-faculty ratio, and they have significantly more members of the national academies. And those seem to be the three things that have prevented the University of Florida from rising further in the rankings. And frankly, will be the things that, if you don't address them, you're going to cause you to drop further in the rankings.
I agree totally.
And so, in terms of your strategic, the strategic plan you've just presented, does that address any of those metrics in terms of attracting more National Academy members, or?
Well, the first priority right now for the board and for the administration is to preserve the quality that we have. It's really not fair to think that we can move significantly into this other tier when we've taken $200 million out of our base budget in the last 6 years. That's why we're not there. Now, the program that was tried several years ago, the World Class Scholars Program, did enable us to hire several national academicians. That's not a secret program. It was funded by the legislature. It required a state match. It was very effective. It's gone. And you're going to need tremendous dollars to make those kinds of gains coming back. And frankly, we just have had a difficult time setting those monies aside when we're filling a hole as big as we've had to fill.
It would seem to me that to make the case for the University of Florida is if certain funds aren't made available, that you're going to drop further in the rankings. Not, you can't stay where you are, because and maybe we need to do a better job of explaining that and explaining how important it is that the University of Florida needs to be perceived nationally as one of the top publics, and it's good for business for Florida. It means jobs for Florida.
Well, there's a very easy way to move this forward. We will never reach the national average at 15% a year, okay? A couple of our universities in the state system need to take a quantum, if you really are serious about us moving up in the national ranks, we need to take a quantum jump in resources. And a partnership agreement between the legislature and the university relative to tuition and state support could provide the resources to make that happen. Our tuition, if it were at the national average, would provide us $100 million more in revenue, roughly speaking.
The national average of the universities, public universities that are ranked ahead of you, tuition is about $10,000,
Correct.
Almost double what yours is. I would argue that if I was going to make a case for letting me go to $10,000 a year in tuition, I need to set out a plan that shows, and this is the way I'll spend it, and this is how I'm going to hire 30 members of the National Academy, and this is how I'm going to bring my student-faculty ratio from 20 to 16, which is the...
Dean, this is not a secret. I've told this to you for years. I've told it to the legislature. It is not complicated. If you want us to move up in the national rankings, we have to be able to hire more world-class faculty, and it takes dollars. And I've said that to the legislature, said it to you, I've said it to people on around this table, and it's not going anywhere. So I mean, you could say it's my fault for not convincing them, but you can't say I haven't told them.
No, you've told. I just haven't seen a plan. That said, if you give me $10,000 a year in tuition, this is the way it'll be spent, and this is the result.
Been saying that for years. That's how we got to 15. And now we're realizing that 15 only, because 15 is being used to cover up reductions in state support, you can't, that would have been enough if we'd have had the baseline of support that we had 6 years ago. But we're using the 15 to keep from sinking.
I understand. I still haven't seen the plan, though, how you would spend it.
Plans are great, and I'm all for them. But you'll have to show me somebody who's willing to listen to my plan, and I'll be happy to put one on the table.
Madam Chair, can I just-
Governor Tripp?
My concern always is, I know this year I'm going to have to do what'll break my heart, and that is vote for tuition increase. And I can see clearly, I'm not going backward, that, you know, it needs to be there. My concern is that as we continue, if we make this jump, will we just let the legislature off the hook? And so they say to us on one side, well, you raise it 20 or 30%. We're going to take 20, 30% savings further. And so that, and what does that do in my mind? It leaves the population, it leaves the students in a very precarious position. So I struggle with agreeing with you. I want the University of Florida to be that kind of institution. And the question is, how do we come to an agreement with the legislature that says, well, we're taking this revenue stream up that you clearly need, that they won't see it as a time to say, well, we need more money in Medicaid, so we're going to continue to take our part away from the university system. Do you worry about that?
Only every day. There is a looming problem that's not even on the radar. It's called the Tabor Amendment. And you think we got troubles now. Just take a look at the state of Colorado and the impact on higher education of one decade of a cap on increases in state spending. What happens is certain areas you can't cap the increases, and other areas you can. So at least in Colorado, what you found is that higher ed has lost significant ground during the last decade. So that's not even factored into the budget deficit issues that we're facing at the state level. So I think that any university in the system here needs to be looking at becoming more self-reliant, not looking at other people. That's why I spend the time I do in fundraising, and that's why we are looking at alternative sources of revenue. I think public education is facing a new paradigm, and we're just going to have to get going if we're going to survive.
Any other questions? Bernie, I have a question. You talked about some of the programs that you're planning to expand. Some of them I thought were maybe at the undergraduate level, some at the master's level, and this may be more of a Joe question, but have you found that you've also closed some programs that maybe were not as attractive? I'm also interested in how expensive is it to add the programs that you're considering, and how does that kind of fit into, I guess, the master plan as we're dealing with fewer dollars and better quality?
Yes, we have engaged with the systems effort to really review our degree offerings and to cull out the ones that we felt were non-productive, passé, of little student demand, and we have done some of that. Most of the degrees that we are proposing are really compelling with large student demand. The fact that we're putting in a master's and a doctoral program in biology, it's an historical oddity that we haven't had one. We're probably the only university in the system that doesn't actually have a degree in biology. But some of these are really important cutting edge areas. For example, genetics counseling. As you know, as there's a proliferation of genetic data, there is very little understanding among the public about how to use it. So people need to have the ability to go to a genetics counselor and say, what does this mean about my ability to have children, etc. And so that's a new area that we will move into. Digital health, again, the ability to integrate current information technology capabilities with new understandings about medicine and personalized medicine, that is a cutting edge area. So we are investing resources into developing these programs, but we expect to see an immediate return in resources or immediate return on investment, not only because the student demand is there, but many of these degrees will also immediately go to distance education formats as well as face-to-face formats. And so we expect that they will bring in revenue and help to actually fund that program. So we think we're on a stable basis. We think we're cleaning the degree inventory. At the same time, we try to remain current by adding cutting-edge degrees.
I have another question. I know I wrote down it's a general education core.
Yes.
What is that?
What we're trying to do two things with that. As you know, general education under the articulation agreement is really common to the state. General education can be done at any university or any community college, and it's transferable. So as we move into putting more of our general education core onto an electronic platform to make it available in distance education and on the University of Florida campus, we thought to ourselves, why should we do this just for the University of Florida? The state has great concerns about duplication of effort. So our LBR actually proposes that the legislature give us $870,000. For that, we commit to put 24 general education courses, which can be used anywhere, on an electronic platform basis. When we create the materials, we will give it away because the legislature has funded it. It's owned by the state. We will give it away to every university in the state and every state college in the state that would like to use it. And so students can use these materials everywhere. There will be no duplication of this. They'll take the courses. It's all transferable. I think this is the type of seamless initiative and efficient use of state resources that you're looking for. It would definitely serve our needs. It would advantage the University of Florida, but we think it will advantage the students of the state and every other public institution of higher education in the state.
So if we take that, Joe, how do I compare that to something that say at I guess all the other universities are also, I guess, dealing with this distance learning concept. Are you suggesting that the courses that you're proposing in this general education core are those that are lacking, or are those course offerings that other universities have not chosen to use for their distance learning? And is that what you found?
In fact, all the universities offer many of the same general education courses. Through the common course numbering system, we all offer the same courses. But all of us in the state education system have not moved quickly to put these on electronic platform basis. And so that's what we at the University of Florida are beginning to do now. And so we're saying we can do this simultaneously for everyone. I want to underscore that this is not an attempt at the University of Florida to grab other people's SCHs. We are proposing to give away the materials that we create. And so if other universities want to offer, English 101, we will give them the materials, but they will offer the courses, they will get the student credit hours, they will remain their students.
Governor Beard and then Governor Edwards.
I just wanted to follow up on something President Matcham just said. We don't look at the foundations that these universities have, and there aren't any great universities around the country that don't have huge, important foundations and that are funded at $1 billion plus or have big funding. And we ought to have it as part of our scorecard here. I mean, because none of the universities are going to be able to become great without having a great foundation and other resources which will move these universities to a higher level. So every university ought to be fundraising like crazy if they can, because the state's not going to be there for them like they've been in the past. So I just think that's an important part of our discussion going forward, or should be.
Governor Edwards?
I asked the smallest university this question, so I think it's appropriate to ask one of our older and larger universities. If a very radical approach was taken that basically said, unless there was a real emergency, that the University of Florida or none of our universities would be able to add any new programs for, say, 3 years, 4 years, I don't know what the number would be, and take the resources that would have gone into these new programs and use those to increase your faculty base, increase your ratios, hire some of the outstanding faculty that you're talking about, would this help or hurt the University of Florida?
Well, the first question I got to ask, where are the new resources coming for these new programs? They're only coming from students who take them and generate revenue. So if you don't have the programs, you don't get to, nobody that I know of has got a whole litany of programs that they're going to ask the legislature to fund. So in a padded room, your idea probably would make some sense, Charlie, but we're in a system where there's no new money. We have to get entrepreneurial, and we have to provide programs that will attract. If we don't attract students in these programs, there will be no new resources. So you've got to sort of think about it from that standpoint. For that reason, I don't think your approach is viable. I wish in the old days it might have been, but I don't think it is now.
I think it differs by the university as well.
You mean other universities are going to get new money for new programs?
Well, I don't know that they're going to get new money, but they're going to add programs, and what they're effectively are doing is kind of robbing Peter to pay Paul. I'm just asking for comment because this is one of the things we're desperately trying to find resources.
I think we've got to begin to think about a new paradigm. And the way we did business for the last 25 years is not going to be the way that we can do business for the next 25 years. So I think we're in we've got competition in the form of the state college system. We've got the for-profits coming in with competition around us, and we have a benefactor, the state, that is not going to be able to fund us anymore. If we can stabilize where we are, I think at least that's the way we see it. That's the best we can come up with. It would be in the state's interest to help emerging institutions like Florida Gulf Coast get going and help them get some of their things. The upside for them in a percentage-wise is probably greater than it is for us because they are so young and so small and they have so much growth potential ahead of them. But the idea that we're going to get new money for new programs, unless they relate to economic development or community-based initiatives that are highly specialized for a community, I just can't see it happening, to tell you the truth.
I guess that's kind of interesting you say that, Bernie, because when we talked to you about the $5 million and you're saying how you were going to use the facility, and I understand, I mean, you should have gotten the $5 million. I'm sorry that it was vetoed, but I thought it was interesting that given that amount of money and everything that's kind of gone on, that you would still feel that you would wait, for the money to come from the state versus using other resources that you have.
Well, I wish you could tell me what they are. One thing I didn't mention to Maury is we are putting $10 million of our own money in it.
Good.
Okay? So if you can tell me where I got money that I'm not spending, I would love for you to help me do that.
Well, no, I mean, and certainly I can't see in your wallet, but it was just kind of, as we were talking about the partnership and about the idea that universities have to do more, thank you for at least sharing you spent the $10 million. I think it's good to put that on the record.
Yeah, well, I mean, if we could, we had to get enough resources to get the program launched in Orlando, or else we'd have an empty building, which would make no sense for anybody.
Right.
And so we have put $10 million of our research revenues into that building. This is not a teaching building primarily, it's a research building. But to finish it off, we made a compelling case to the legislature, which they agreed with, that there was another $5 million that should be invested in that project. And I think it's worth worth one more try.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. Sure,
we can beat around the bush all we want. The problem is this: if you take the money from someplace else and spend it, the legislators won't come back next year and say, "Here, we want to give you a $5 million back." That's very unfortunate.
Probably not.
Okay.
Well, thank you very much, Bernie. I appreciate the fact that you not only spent 30 minutes but an hour with us. Certainly, we are.
What do I owe you? What'll that cost me?
You would probably get something for that versus having to pay something for it. I certainly want to thank your board chair and your new board member for joining us. I know it's going to be a long couple of days. Now, schedule-wise, I know that we're pretty much off schedule. If we can just take a 15-minute break and then come back at a 10:40, does that work? And we'll get going then. Thank you very much.